Hi and welcome. In this chapter, we will discuss about NAT Gateway. So, NAT Gateway, which is also called as Network Address Translation Gateway, is a managed AWS service that is used so that instance in a private subnet can communicate outside the VPC. These private resources don't allow any inbound traffic from the public internet. So, in order to understand NAT Gateway, let's take an example of the VPC. So here in this diagram, we can see a VPC, which is 10.0.0.0 slash 16. So in this VPC, we have two subnets. One is private subnet and another one is public subnet. As I told, public subnet which is connected to the internet gateway so that it will have a inbound and outbound connectivity to the internet. So, however, the private subnet it does not have any connectivity to the internet. It is totally private. So, if you type www.google.com inside this particular subnet, let's say you have a virtual machine in this subnet. If you type google.com, then it won't be able to access Google because it does not have any visibility to the internet. So now think about the situation. You have a virtual machine in this subnet. So it is completely private. It does not have any visibility to internet. However, you want to install some security patches. So in order to install security patches, you should have a outbound connection to the Microsoft patch portal. For example, let's say in general take internet, so you need to have access to internet in order to download the patches and install the patches. So this communication is only required one way communication, which is a outbound. So you don't need inbound connection in order to install patches, etc. So it is only outbound required. So you wanted to have a connectivity so that it can install the patches in this private segment. In a technically, this is not possible by default because there is no internet connections or visibility for the private subnet. Here comes something called NAT gateway. So NAT gateway, what it will do, let's say this is the NAT gateway. So this is your virtual machine on the private subnet. So you need to deploy a NAT gateway and you have to add a route entry to this particular private subnet saying that if you wanted to go into the internet, for example, 0.0.0, this is the internet representation. So you need to go to the NAT gateway. So I need to add a route entry saying that 0.0.0 should go to the NAT gateway. The moment we add this route in this route table and attach that route table to this subnet, all the traffic it will go to the NAT gateway. So NAT gateway will have the capability to talk to the internet. This is a one way communication, only outbound traffic, not inbound traffic. So without having a public IP address of without having public IP address on your network or without having any internet gateway directly attached to this subnet, still you can able to communicate to the internet that is using NAT gateway. So this is the biggest advantage of NAT gateway. So when the NAT gateway is communicating to the internet, it will use the public IP address which is assigned to the NAT gateway. So by default, NAT gateway will have a public IP address. So that public IP address will be used to communicate to the internet. So this is how you can achieve outbound connectivity to your private segment deployed VMs through NAT gateway. One important note you need to keep it in your mind when you deploy your NAT gateways. While you are deploying NAT gateway, you need to deploy this NAT gateway in a public subnet. So this is you have to make a note. So you cannot deploy a NAT gateway in a private segment or private subnet. So this is not supported. So always you need to deploy a NAT gateway in a public segment or public subnet. This is why, because by default public subnet which is attached to the internet gateway. So when you initiate a traffic, for example, let's say this is your VM which is in a private subnet, and now you added a route saying that all the internet traffic should go to the NAT gateway. So now NAT gateway need to talk to the internet So it will go via our internet gateway and then it will reach the internet. So this is how it works. So in order to summarize, first you need to have a private subnet. So in this private subnet you will have your VM, and in this subnet you need to have a route table. So this route table should say that any traffic it want to go to internet, it should go to the NAT gateway. So once you define this route, all the traffic it will go to the NAT gateway. So this NAT gateway again deployed in the public subnet. So this public subnet again it will have an internet gateway. So through this it will go to the internet. So in short, you need to have both public subnet as well as private subnet in order to implement and configure NAT gateway. So one important note you have to make when you're considering NAT gateways, NAT gateway it will only help you with the outbound traffic to the internet. It means anything you can access from your virtual machine to the internet. However, from the internet, you cannot access your virtual machine through the NAT gateway. For example, let's say you have your virtual machine here. You wanted to access this virtual machine from the internet. Then this is not possible through NAT gateway because NAT gateway only supports one-way traffic, which is outbound traffic. If you want both one two-way traffic, which is outbound as well as inbound, then you need to go with the internet gateway which we have discussed earlier. So this is the brief about NAT gateway.